You're listening to the Fan2Fan Podcast, and on this episode, we continue our conversation about the 2006 documentary American Scary, all about horror hosts, the horror host tradition, and more. Here we go. Welcome to the Fan2Fan Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Bernie Gonzalez. With me today, fellow co-host Pete Charbonneau, and we have returning Fan2Fan All-Star John Zemsky. The three of us in part one began our conversation about the 2006 documentary titled American Scary.
A horror host is part comedian, part spooky figure, and they're a magician because they have to take these crappy movies every week and make you want to watch them. And they got to put some kind of magic into them to make you want to watch them.
Horror hosts work.
Tell me something I don't know.
Don't get smart.
And just as a thing, they work. They give you context.
As well as maybe a little bit of humor.
I hope you're all paying attention out there.
That allows you to unwind before the next scary onslaught.
That's the only way to do things, Luke. You do something, do it.
There's two different kinds of horror hosts. There's those that make fun of the movie.
We'll get back to tonight's Dynamite movie.
Dynamite?
Yes, it's the real bomb.
And then there are those who love the movies.
Check this out!
The horror host gave the movies a name. The genre was kind of born by watching these guys.
Good evening. A good ghoul evening to you.
No, don't turn off that TV set.
I never thought it would go past 13 weeks.
I've got all these great ideas. I used them all in the first two shows. And I'm like, now what do I do?
We did a lot of improv on that show.
I worked very hard on the show. I show up and read.
My parents would say, your son's in television. What does he do? Oh, he's in television.
I tried to make her believable, not like someone in a costume.
You know, when you're young, when you're impressionable, these things have a profound impact.
Every city had their local people, and people loved them.
It was new, it was fresh, it was original, and it was theirs.
Once a week, you get to be this maniac.
Ladies and gentlemen, call it.
We thought, oh, I would love to do that. Look at him, he lives in a spooky castle. What a wonderful life he leads. I want to be that guy.
Oh, there you are.
It was as shabby and thrown together a project as you could imagine. But there was a real charm.
Probably the first time in the history of television that somebody came on and was honest and said, this is probably the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's all we got tonight, so it's it.
Great documentary that really covers the history of horror hosts in America. We got to see a little bit about the origins of the horror host, the many horror hosts that really started the tradition of horror hosting, how they each put their own personality on how they horror hosted, from sharing trivia to comedy to shtick, from being family friendly to being a little bit more risque. And how really all of these horror hosts took on the personality of themselves, the person who was doing the actual hosting, whether they were a comedian or just a weatherman who happened to be at the TV station after the news and was happy to put on a cape and or a monocle and share a little bit of trivia while hosting some creature features late night on a Saturday.
What comes through with a lot of them is just the passion that they have for it, because you can't be doing this for 5, 10, 15, 20 years without having that passion. None of these people, with the exception of very few, Elvira and a couple others that are making any kind of money off of this stuff, all of this is really just the love of doing it. So I think a lot of them, find what their niche is, what they're good at, and what speaks to them and resonates with whatever audience they have. And I don't think any of these hosts are trying too hard to be something that they're not. Like, you don't really, again, in my limited exposure to it, you don't really see a lot of these hosts like trying to be like, I'm going to be edgy, when that's not really their personality, not really their character, and vice versa. They all kind of seem to settle in where they need to be, and that's what gets presented to the audience.
That is crazy. The slimy, slithering succubus.
Who is this woman? When Elvira comes to town, the fireworks are sure to follow.
You looking for me?
Elvira, mistress of the dark.
And now, from New York's movie station, the 8 o'clock movie,
on Channel 11.
There's something about Elvira that is so interesting, especially for us growing up as teenagers. And, she had two very big reasons why she became very popular: her talent and her wit.
That's what I was going to say.
Exactly. But she broke through. Watching this documentary, some of those names I'm like peripherally aware of, like Zachary and Chili Billy, just because like I love Fangoria and I'm like, oh yeah, they mentioned that. But Elvira was doing like Coors commercials. I remember watching those in like the 80s, Mistress of the Dark, where she'd lay on that couch and she 100% had my attention. She would just kind of play, as they kind of mentioned in the documentary, that sort of like California bimbo-esque character, but because she was aware of what she was doing, gets you a little bit off guard, and then her wit just keeps coming over and over and over again. And by the time you're done, I'm enraptured.
She played this like dominant role. And I think the way she played it and the shtick that they had going was very, very different. Like she was in control and she was going to make fun of not just the movie, but she was also going to be, kind of throw some little jabs at just men and things in general. And of course, one of the greatest things ever is many years later, she comes out. It's just amazing. But again, it speaks to the mastery of her character that she created. It makes perfect sense that she was super close friends with Paul Rubens because they both did something similar but different. And the mastery of her character with her commercials, and then they like threw her in a couple of her own feature films, and it is astounding. I feel like in a lot of ways, sex always sells. I don't know if there were too many people that had the whole entire package going.
Elvira, Cassandra Peterson, I know she had like a incredibly interesting life before Elvira, and she's doing like burlesque and things like that, but wasn't she involved with like a group of like comedians? Like, and I know Paul Rubens was part, but even before that in the 70s, I think she was like, I don't know if
the Groundlings. We literally said the Groundlings at the exact same time.
So I remember her being in photos with the guy. I don't remember the guy's name, but he played like the unknown comic who was always on like the Gong Show. And there was like that show with Super Dave Bizarre, John Viner hosted. And I don't know, I want to say she was on that maybe too, but there's like, it's a little bit before my time because going back to cable, I remember that being like on Showtime or whatever. And that was like kind of raunchy, at least for the time. I was one of those, like my parents were like, you can watch the Super Dave skit, but that's it, because I don't know what else was going on with that show. But clearly my preteen, body was not going to be subjected to it as long as my parents had anything to say about it. But I want to say that if she was not on that show, she was hanging around with that group of comedians. So I think a lot of her shtick may have been formed with that and like that sense of humor. Because I think you nailed it, John. Like she has this ability to be. I mean, the control thing is great because it allowed her to have the career that she had. Like she was not going to get pushed around by male-dominated industry. Like she was able to carve out her own thing. But at the same time, like her jokes were corny. She could kind of be klutzy, but you knew that there was an intelligence, not even just behind there was an intelligence to her character, even when she was still being kind of goofy and klutzy. And so that was, I think, the disarming part of it. It was like she was multifaceted just in terms of her character.
Now, have you guys seen both of her movies, the 1988 Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and then the 2001? I had to do a double take. I'm like, wow, that was released in 2001, Elvira's Haunted Hills.
Mistress of the Dark has come across streaming several times, and I always mean to put it on because I've seen some clips, and I feel like now I want to watch it just to see like her comedic presence in it. For whatever reason, I just haven't put it on yet, so I have not seen either of them.
That's the only one I've seen, and I think I've seen it like twice.
Hello, darling. It's me again, yours truly, Elvira, a gal with the enormous ratings. Well, that's our show. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I did. Oh boy, I mean, could you believe that cheesy-looking monster? Looked like Gumby on steroids.
In her movie that I watched, it's like her doing her shtick, the exact same shtick she does as a host, but then they just put her around these stuffy people. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it got kind of old quickly for me. Like, again, her presence is amazing on it, but they also went for like a PG or PG-13 type movie. So it's very kind of like, which she's probably never been called flat in some ways, because it doesn't have a whole lot of bite to it. But I've never seen the newer. So.
The original one does have a little bit of that, like, what is it, like Stranger in a Strange Land, the Addams Family, the Munsters, where if these people are basically Frankenstein and a vampire and they live next to you, the show just taught us in like sitcom tropes that they're actually like incredibly nice people, and they're actually the normal people compared to all the stuffy people that just don't get them, that discriminate them because they're creatures and ghouls and goblins. Oh my. A lot of the first Elvira movie, the 1988 movie, is a lot of that. Her not being accepted. I think there's also something about the idea of a horror host being there between commercial breaks. And I think this was something that Pete, when we were talking to Dr. Gain Green, and it was kind of neat to hear the back end of like how this works. When you think about like a 2-hour movie, maybe of that 2 hours, the actual movie is like, maybe I'm just going to make it simple math, an hour and a half. So that means you have half an hour, but you really don't have half an hour. You have half an hour to show commercials. And some of them, based on the agreement you have for your network, especially if you're local, might be paid for by a dog food company or a local car sales lot. That's already accounting for maybe 15, 17 minutes worth of that. So really what's left, it might be 13 minutes. And if we've ever seen an episode of Svengoolie or any horror host, they kind of front load it where you get the intro so they can really do the shtick. And that might be 4 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. And then you get the little commercial breaks in between where you get 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And really, when you think about it and you add all of that up, at the end, then you get the like, hey, tune in next time, where they maybe add the 2 minutes there. Wow, they were only really on screen for 17 minutes, right? And I think that's something about the Elvira experience, especially for, again, since you guys didn't grow up with like Svengoolie like I did, where I loved Svengoolie because when the movie was a slog, I knew I just had to wait a little bit till the commercial break. Now in hindsight, I'm like, oh yeah, he was only ever on screen for like 30 seconds. That's it. So there's something about I think the sugarness of it all. Like if you get 17 minutes of it, it's great. When you see Elvira for an hour and 30 some minutes in the movie, I love her. I don't know if I love 130 minutes of her.
The shtick nonstop. It's just there's no ebb and flow to it. Mm-hmm. You need that ebb and flow in a movie. And it was exactly like that Beverly Hillbillies thing of just put her in a completely unattainable situation with people that are completely the opposite of her. I'd be interested to hear your take on it, Pete.
I will definitely check it out at some point. I am curious to see. Yeah, it sounds like it might have been one of those cases where like they had an idea that they tried to blow up to feature length that maybe might have been better suited to be maybe a half-hour special or an hour special or something like that, because that, I think, would certainly have been an option back then. But I mean, don't begrudge she was infiltrating, like you said, like she was doing commercials.
Want to go psycho with me, Elvira? Here at the Bates Motel? Look for me wherever they sell mug root beer. And enter the Go Psycho with Elvira contest. You can be my guest at Universal Studios in Hollywood for a monstrous bash at the Bates Motel. Shower anyone? This Halloween, go psycho with Elvira and win a party with mug root beer and me.
I love my mug.
I love it.
I think she had her own series. I used to see them at the video store of like the VHS. There'd be like a double feature or like 3 movies, and I never rented any of them, so I don't know how that format worked, if she was like at the beginning of the movies or kind of cutting in between.
I think she mentions it in American Scary, where she talks about how they had all of those public domain movies, and he seemingly did pretty well. But I mean, also I remember Grandpa Munster had the same thing where it's just like
on TBS.
But he also had like a series that was on VHS that like littered every mom and pop video store. Like when you can't get Friday the 13th, you could get Grandpa Munster Does Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And it was just him being basically himself. I think, that's at a time when like physical media is still a thing and people are grabbing these movies. It's no different than like, again, watching Mystery Science Theater, keep circulating the tapes. You record it, You share the tapes with other people. Well, if I'm going to watch a shitty movie, I'd like the host to like guide me through it and make it more fun. And at least Elvira did that. And that's where, luckily for her, she was able to make some good money with movies that she didn't have to license because they were in public domain.
Quick aside, I saw Grandpa Munster crossing the street in Manhattan once when I was probably in my 20s. I would say it would be like a unique thing, but like apparently like people saw him around New York all the time, so it wasn't really all that special, but I got to be one of the people that saw him, so that was
I wanted there to be a punchline to that so bad.
I wish I had something better to say to it. But I was gonna say like I would be curious to know now that a lot of these hosts have moved to like doing streaming, YouTube channels and things like that, like I feel like that gives them an opening to change up the format. Because one of the things I thought was super interesting when Dr. Gangrene was talking to us, the guy that ran the station that he was at in Nashville was like, hey, I got my hands on these packages of movies, and they're basically like, correct me if I'm wrong, Bernie, but the way that they're set up, like the commercials are built into them, the way they sell them. And it's like, okay, so now you locally can sell local advertising to fill those spaces. And the guy was like, hey, we've got these slots. I'm going to go fill a couple of them with some local businesses. He's like, the rest are yours. You can fill them with ads if you want. If you want to go out and solicit ads and you make the money off of that, or if you want to use that for your sketch, you can do that too to slot in. And obviously that was very much product of the television market, which no longer really exists, at least in terms of what these horror hosts are doing now. I'm wondering how many of them still do like, we're going to chop up the movie and I'm going to kind of come in and do my little thing and we're going to have a skit here, as opposed to front loading it, back loading it, or maybe like one break in between. They're like, oh, we're going to drop some knowledge here and do something like this, and then we'll go back to the movie. This is just my personal preference. Like there are some times when, like you were saying, Bernie, the movie's a slog. Someone come in and break this shit up and like give me something to laugh at. As opposed to like if it's a movie I'm really engaged in, sometimes you don't want that broken up by like the skit coming. You kind of just want the movie to play through, and then they can come in at the end to be like, oh, hey, here's some stuff maybe you didn't know about it, and then maybe want to do a skit at the end and do some jokes at the end. That's fine too. But again, having not really been too familiar, I don't know if either of you have seen anything online streaming like how it's done now. Is it still kind of that old model of people experimenting, doing some different things?
I've seen a few horror hosts online, and I think in some ways they've kind of embraced what social media and media now is. I think the one thing, right, they mentioned in the documentary where there was a sort of zeitgeist moment where the shock theater package goes out from Columbia Pictures, 1957. All these hosts around the nation now have it, and they're all talking about how without talking to each other, it wasn't like the bored weatherman with a lot of charisma that should have been in local community theater meeting group that meets in Cleveland in September every year. Hey guys, did you get the horror movies? Yeah. I'm thinking I'm going to do a cape. I'm going to do a monocle. Oh yeah. And then they all spread apart and do their thing. This just happened. And they all kind of did their shtick, and it just so happened to be not too far from each other. And they would get fan mail and then probably based on some of their performance, their production, to kind of cater to their audience. Like I think it was Chili Billy who talked about how like he would sometimes pop up in the corner of the screen, and he's like, I don't know if everyone ever liked that because you don't want to interrupt the movie. But if someone was about to get attacked, like he would be like, I'd jump on the screen and be like, watch out, look around the corner. The Mystery Science Theater riff track of it all, where you're engaging as like another participant with the movie. There is something now about, I think, the streaming horror host, because they get the comments immediately and probably can make the show what they want, which I think, if anything, just goes back to the thing we were kind of talking about. Like in the end, and Dr. Gangrene kind of said this, you make the show you want the way you want to make it. And if you like interrupting, then you ignore, I guess, the comments where people are like, hey, the movie is sacred. You never interrupt the movie. Sometimes I do, and it is what it is. Or, hey, I like to make these campy skits, and I do them in between, and those are commercial breaks. It's such a different world than the one that we grew up with that has evolved. But again, going back to Mystery Science Theater, one of the things that I always loved that's just kind of charming about it when you see the reruns would be when Joe or Mike would show up art, kids that would draw the robots, and then a letter that a parent would write and talk about how like that's the show that they watch with their family on Saturdays. And there's something about that local programming, that local celebrity that in the age of streaming is a little different because you have people watching you from anywhere. You just got to find your tribe. You find your niche, and then you're just consistent and you keep changing and evolving, and you maybe do a Discord server, and then you tell me your birthday and I do a shout out for you. And maybe that's like the closest thing to showing your artwork. I think there's that, which I don't think is lost even in the age where we have more technology.
Agreed. And, this kind of veers off a little bit, but we do some movie watching, Pete and I, with some of our friends, and Bernie, you've been on before too. Sometimes we'll watch films that are amazing and talk about how they're amazing, but more often lately, we'll just watch schlock and just make fun of it and have laughs. And it really, I was thinking about this just before when one of you guys mentioned that wood paneling moment in the basement. Bernie, you had mentioned it joking with your friend. It gives me that feel. It gives me that, you're in your basement, you're watching something that's funny, you get to share that moment and say something to make somebody else laugh. The combination of the movie, the setup, the timing, the characters that you're hanging with, lightning in a bottle for fun.
The hashtag stranger friends, right? Like that is born out of necessity, out of lockdown, out of COVID, out of loneliness, out of the need to find that communal experience. And you end up finding these essentially strangers throughout the U.S. at a time when the need for connection was higher than ever before. And because of that connection to watching so bad they're good to shit on type movies, then you just meet your people and your tribe. And the next thing you know, you're wishing someone well on their like job interview, because now it's kind of beyond the movie. We're friends now. And also, when are we going to watch another crappy movie again? Because this is kind of fun.
Or you're attending the 40th anniversary of Reanimator in Harvard Square with Barbara Crampton, with members of the Stranger Friends. Who can say where it can take you?
And someone high fives Barbara Crampton in that scenario.
Yeah, someone may or may not have done that.
They do. And again, like just coming back to the horror host, like I love the passion. Like it doesn't matter if the production is through the roof. I just love the passion of it. And if you bring the passion, I'll watch it if it's funny or if it's dark and mysterious. I'll give it a shot. And some people may stick around if you bring that, like you said, make the show that you want to make. And you might be surprised how many people are out there would watch.
I think that was the fun thing too about talking to Dr. Gangrene is the guy has now been inducted into the Rondo Hatton Hall of Fame. He's been hosting for 25 years. Pete, I was going to ask you, how did it feel seeing Dr. Gangrene in the American Scary documentary after we literally had just talked to him?
Yeah, it was a little bit weird to see him however many years younger from, was that documentary 2006 or something?
Yeah, 06.
He was well-spoken, and it was kind of cool having now interviewed him and gotten to know him a little bit to then see him in that documentary amidst all those others. I think even one of the other guys name-checked him too, like my good friend, Dr. Gangrene.
One thing I really was happy about is it's nice to see some of these people get their due, maybe make a little bit of money. And the amount of time that these people have put in and effort and thought and energy, when you're doing that, you're not doing something else. That's where I have some of that appreciation for the passion, because it's hard to be able to do that over a long period of time.
I think it's probably fair to say every single person in that documentary had a day job, maybe except for Neil Gaiman and Tom Savini, Leonard Maltin, whose job is to review movies. I'm pretty sure everyone else was working somewhere else to make ends meet, because the styrofoam that you need to make fake basement castle blocks that you put in your background and to buy capes and monocles, that money don't grow on trees. And I think a lot of these folks kind of said that point, John, where they also didn't get a lot of money from this. So I'm hoping that, in some ways, like cons, I think have been good avenues for people to respect those B-level actors and get a picture or have her sign my copy of the movie. I think same thing with the horror hosts. They hit up their local cons, especially the horror ones.
Big news! Yours truly, along with the Sven Squad, are thrilled to announce we will be making our very first in-person panel appearance at the San Diego Comic-Con this July. Look for more details at Svengoolie.com.
What a lot of these people that I've seen do resonates with me is just like I picture myself when I was younger with my brother and our friends in our basement with the video camera, making a home shopping network video where like literally we're just grabbing stuff in the basement and I'll sell this. And it was like the dumbest thing ever, but had so much fun. I had like the best time doing it. Like we did it for hours, and we couldn't wait to just put the tape in the VCR to watch what we had done. That's where my relation to seeing people, like Larry was saying, he started doing it in the shed in the back of his house, just to have that kind of dedication to do it in the middle of winter or in the summer when you have no air conditioning or heat, that dedicated to be like, I got to put this out because I just am compelled to do it. Yeah. I mean, I hope that a lot of these people are able to find some way to earn some remuneration for all this work. I mean, it's never going to be enough. It's never going to equal the effort that they put into this, but whether it's through Patreon or between TikTok and Instagram, putting out short videos, if they can get enough followers and get enough hits on things like that, to monetize, like most things with social media, it's a lot more work, but it feels like some of that stuff might be tailor-made to they've got a quick skit, throw that shit all up on Instagram and just get reels going. And, maybe they can carve out a slightly bigger niche than they already have.
Good morning. Zachary here. Well, so you survived Friday the 13th, eh? So you're not superstitious, eh? Huh? Walk on the ladders, black cats, kick them, bother about those cats. Oh, listen here. Did you know that the English people used to have 13 steps on the gallows whenever they executed somebody? Used to invite everybody to come and see it, too. That was great fun. Of course, our flag has 13 stripes, our flag. I'm a member here of the United States of America, as well as having come from Transylvania. Zachary is the name here, of course. And we're here for this strange hour of a straight... Well, that's all right. Listen, if you happen to be living on the 13th floor or staying alone in a hotel with room number 913, look out. I know it was yesterday, but just the same, look out. Some buildings don't even have a 13th floor, Those of you watching in Long Island. Long Island. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I love Long Island. I love it. Should be aware that Channel 67, when you add it together, 6 and 7, 13. Have you? Can you figure that out? Well, the next hour we'll visit some old friends here, some of the dearly departed, I should say. This is a show that just reeks with bad taste, so we're going to dig into the cemeteries for all the old rock and roll stars who are no longer willing with us. Hey. Well, let's get going here with the mighty J. Giles Band and Friday night on Friday the 13th here at U68.
One question for you guys. I won't ambush you fully because it's not fair to say if you could be a horror host, what would be your name and what would be your
I had the same question lined up, but I wasn't going to ask.
Okay. There you go. And if you do know that, then by all means, please share.
I wasn't.
Okay, that's fair. But I thought I'd give you guys at least one question that I think we could probably all answer. And I think within the confines of knowing that you're hosting the experience, however you prefer, whether you're sharing tidbits and trivia about the movie or just deciding to go for it and wear the monocle, go full camp and full skit with maybe a puppet or two in hand, what movie would you want to feature? What would be your movie? If any of you guys have one that comes to mind, and if you think kind of like how you would horror host it, by all means, please share.
That's a good question because you could go for something horrible and have fun with it, which would be my inclination.
I would love to do something to introduce people to lesser known movies that I really love. So I loved the movie The Vast of Night, which was a Prime movie years back.
Love that movie. Yeah, it's kind of like Rod Serling Jr.
Yep. And I would love to be like almost that like kind of creepy mysterious host that presents that and just adds a little bit to the mystery. But there's definitely something in me that would love to do the all-out slapstick something. I'm just not sure what movie that would be, but it would be really fun to do that.
I think I've got one because it's one that I grew up loving, used to scare the shit out of me as a kid. Doesn't seem to get a whole, I've seen it on streaming, but it doesn't come up a ton when people talk about it, but it's the Day of the Triffids, which is like 60s British horror movie about like these plants from outer space that kind of uproot themselves and go attacking mankind who's been blinded by a meteor shower. So there's like shades of 28 Days Later in it a little bit.
Sunday night on TBS, meteor showers bring man-eating flowers. Who will survive the Day of the Triffids? Sunday night at 7 Eastern on TBS.
Because that movie takes itself super seriously, but at the end of the day, it's like these trees sloshing around, walking around. So I feel like you could have fun with it because it's not like so bad it's good. It's like, it's British B-movie level, and I think there's a lot of charm to it, but I think hosting it could probably have a lot of fun with that. So that would be my pick.
What about you, Bernie?
I'm going to steal your idea, John, of having, for some reason, my licensing department, they were working overtime. And they got me 2 movies. The early movie that might be a bit more family friendly. And then I'm going to do a late night movie. Because, John, that was a great idea. I love that. So I'm going to run with that. I think the early movie, and John, I'm going to steal even more from you. I would love to share more about a movie that I fell in love with that gave me permission to like black and white movies. We mentioned it when we talked about to Dr. Gangrene Pete. It was Night of the Living Dead.
Because of the obvious threat to untold numbers of citizens and because of the crisis which is even now developing, this radio station will remain on the air day and night. Misshapen monsters seem to best be described as mayhem. The only information reporters have been able to get from official sources is for private citizens to stay.
Don't you understand what's going on out there?
Do not venture outside for any reason.
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Night of the Living Dead.
I know it might be a bit gruesome for younger kids, but also I wouldn't go maybe more like PG-13. We're talking like Goonies, Indiana Jones. Like I can be a little bit more risque. And to be fair, it's black and white, so you can get away with a little bit more. Learning about that movie, George Romero, Image 10. And I just like the idea of like when I learn about things is context. So these guys did this in Pittsburgh, and it's basically like a bunch of friends, and they all helped each other with projects. Like that's so cool. Sometimes you get Night of the Living Dead, and sometimes you get Night Riders, or you get a Calgon commercial, and they did like commercial stuff beyond like creative stuff, but it's still in the end just a bunch of friends making cool stuff. That's the story that I would want to share in between the commercial breaks, let alone all the cool stuff about Night of the Living Dead that I think people who've seen it and kind of chalked it into the like, oh yeah, it's like the public domain movie. It is, but man, there's so much more. Again, I have to send edible arrangements to the good people in my licensing department. They also got me Dawn of the Dead, the Romero version. I think that would be a cool movie to do in a more like adult version. The movie, for whatever reason, I think because of licensing issues, is not as ubiquitous as it should be on different streaming platforms. It should be everywhere. It's not. It's actually, you have to do some work to find it. And I would want to go with that one full shtick and do it like I'm in the mall, hiding, watching the movie, eating cans of Spam, and maybe even like weave myself in the movie where like I hear the gunshots as I cut to break. I'm just going to stay in here and drink another icy, and hopefully they don't hear me, and then just like make annoying slurping icy sounds and, be completely ridiculous. They're moving the cars around. That's where the car keys went. Get on the PA every once in a while and just like cut to their reaction shots. And I think that would be kind of fun. Bring in maybe a PG audience for PG-13 audience for the 7 a.m. But then at night, we're going to go to the mall with Dawn of the Dead.
You have people just like Pete and I when we were younger, like trying to tell little white lies to our parents so somehow we're still watching, that even though we're not supposed to be. Not that I did.
Not at all. Not at all.
Good evening. Baron von Crypt here. Boo caught me out in my garden cemetery. It's lovely out here. This is home to me. This is where I was born and raised. Or should I say lowered? Great heavens. Must be a cousin of mine. I'm just standing here watching these winds caressing the sands of time. I don't know. Nothing like a tall, cool blood on the rocks to pick you up. Fantastic. See what I mean? Hello there. I've decided Igor is going to run for the presidency. How about that, Bunky? And as soon as he's elected, I am going to take over as head of the Internal Revenue Service. After all, I've had a lot of experience at sucking people dry. Trust me, playing a little chess and letting time pass. Don't tell me that was time passing.
That was time passing.
I asked you not to tell me that. I've made a monster, but I had a little problem. He's too little, I can't believe it. I must have left out the yeast. Let me show you. Watch this. Voila! Hello there. Good evening. I am Baron von Kripp. I could have sworn I just said good evening. I am Baron von Kripp. But my vocal cords aren't even warm. And tonight, I will explain how to put a bite on a victim and suck her dry of blood. Don't realize my true genius. Someday, I will be up there with the greats.
I'm hoping that we'll always kind of in some ways have horror hosts around us. I think there is a bit of a richness that we have because of Rich Coase, who's Svengoolie, and the fact that he's become popular beyond the Midwest. And it just feels like he'll happily hand the baton to a new generation of people.
We didn't even touch on whole history. When you go back, we've got like the horror comics, like EC Comics, Old Time Radio that had like the horror hosts. There's a rich history where television and now streaming horror hosts have sprung from, and maybe that's something that we revisit on a future episode. We'll take a dive down there, because there's something charming about those old radio shows, from the 30s, 40s, 50s. On like remember my dad playing E.G. Marshall in the 70s, like they were still playing it, like driving around. He's like, whatever, I forget what it was called, like it's coming on now. We were driving somewhere, and I have his voice is in my head. It's like embedded in my brain, like till the day I die.
Inner Sanctum, right? The Shadow. We were kind of talking about that a bit too with Dr. Gangrene. Like that's all kind of a part of it. It's not exactly horror hosting, but it's still in that same world that brought us the Crypt Keeper.
Some of those early radio shows, it was like hosted by like The Witch, and it would be like that they would like introduce the Knight's Tale.
I've listened to it a bunch, and there's so much free stuff out there on like TuneIn Radio. You could just pull them up, and they have tons and tons of episodes with the original commercials that are almost always for cigarettes. But it's amazing. They have some sci-fi ones. The detective ones are easier to find, and then the horror ones I think are a little bit tougher. I need to do a dive, but they also have some of them with audio on YouTube.
There used to be a podcast that would just cycle through all the horror, and some of the quality was better than others. I don't know where they were originally ripped from, but great stuff to listen to as you're about to fall asleep at night. At least for me, it was great comfort listening.